When your eyes meet mine, it's as though the universe pauses, and all I can feel is the weight of your gaze. Your gaze holds me captive, leaving me speechless, yet my heart says everything I wish I could express. Every glance from you is a reminder that there are emotions too deep to be captured in words. When you look at me, I forget how to speak because your eyes tell a story my lips could never say. The moment your eyes find mine, words become irrelevant as the silence between us speaks volumes. With each look, your eyes pull me deeper into a world where words are unnecessary, only feelings remain. Your gaze has a way of calming my storm of thoughts, leaving me in a serene silence that says everything. When you look at me, I'm lost in a conversation with your eyes, one that no words could possibly match. Your eyes speak the language of my heart, and every time you look at me, I forget what I was going to say. Every glance from you wraps me in a silence filled with all the words I'll never need to say. In your gaze, I find everything I've ever wanted to say, but I don't need to say it aloud. Every time you look at me, my mind goes blank, but my heart is louder than words ever could be. When your eyes meet mine, I feel like I've been understood without a single word being spoken. Your gaze has a way of making everything else fade away, leaving only the emotions you stir in me. Every time you look at me, it feels like I'm standing on the edge of something beautiful, where words fall short. When you look at me, I feel 1,000 emotions that words could never describe. Every glance you give me leaves me speechless because your eyes convey everything my heart feels. In the moment you look at me, words no longer seem important. It's your gaze that tells me everything I need to know. Every time you look at me, the world feels smaller, and all that matters is the connection between us. Your gaze is the most powerful language, and every time you look at me, I find myself listening with my heart. When you look at me, I lose my ability to speak, as if the silence holds the meaning I've always sought. Each time you look at me, the words escape me, replaced by a deeper connection I can't express. Your eyes are more eloquent than anything I could ever say, and every glance speaks to my soul. Every time our eyes meet, the world becomes quieter, and all that matters is the unspoken understanding between us. When you look at me, I forget how to speak because the way your eyes hold me says everything I need to hear. Your gaze leaves me in awe, and I find myself unable to speak, caught in the magic of what's unspoken. In that brief moment when our eyes meet, words feel unnecessary, and all that matters is the connection between us. Every glance you give me makes me forget how to speak, but I find peace in the silence between us. When you look at me, I feel as though I've found a language only my heart understands. Your gaze has the power to silence my thoughts, leaving me lost in the emotions you evoke in me. Every time you look at me, I'm reminded that sometimes silence is the most powerful way to communicate. In the quiet between us, your eyes speak louder than any words I could say. When you look at me, I'm filled with 1,000 unspoken thoughts that I can never seem to express. Your gaze makes me forget the words I thought I knew, replacing them with feelings too profound for language. Every time our eyes meet, I find myself speechless, lost in the depth of what you make me feel. When you look at me, I forget everything because in that moment, words don't matter. Only you do. Your eyes create a language I can't speak, yet one that resonates deeply within me every time you look at me. Every time you look at me, my soul speaks in ways that my lips can't express, and I feel completely understood. When our eyes meet, I forget how to speak because everything I need to say is already in your gaze. Your gaze makes me forget the world around us, leaving me in a silence that's more powerful than any words. Every time you look at me, I'm reminded that there are moments too beautiful to capture in words. When you look at me, I lose my voice, for I find myself immersed in the silence of our connection. Your gaze pulls me into a world where words aren't needed, and all I feel is the emotion that flows between us. Every time you look at me, I forget how to speak because your presence fills the silence with meaning. When your eyes meet mine, the world becomes quieter and my heart takes over the conversation. Your gaze renders me speechless, leaving nothing but the echo of my feelings. In the moment our eyes lock, everything else fades away, and all I feel is the depth of my silence. Every time you look at me, words feel unnecessary because your eyes say it all. Your gaze is a language I can never fully understand, yet it speaks to the deepest part of me. In the silence between us, I find 1,000 unspoken words. Every glance you give me makes me forget the words I thought I knew, replacing them with feelings too deep to express. When you look at me, I am lost in a world where words don't matter. Your eyes make my heart race, yet my lips remain silent, knowing no words could capture the moment. I forget how to speak because when you look at me, I'm simply overwhelmed by the emotions you stir in me. It's not that I have nothing to say, but when your eyes meet mine, words feel too small for the moment. In the light of your gaze, I lose the ability to speak, for my thoughts are tangled in the magic of your presence. When you look at me, my heart speaks louder than my voice ever could. Your eyes make my soul tremble in ways that leave me speechless but full of emotions. Every time you look at me, it's as if time stops, and my thoughts become a blur of feelings I can't put into words. Your gaze quiets the world, making me realize that silence is the most honest response I can give. I try to speak, but your eyes pull me into a silence where no words can match the intensity of the moment. Every look from you feels like a poem without words, a language only my heart understands. When you look at me, I forget everything because in that moment, all I need is you. Your gaze is like a spell that renders me speechless, filling me with emotions that cannot be voiced. There are no words that could ever do justice to the way your gaze makes me feel. Every time our eyes meet, the silence between us speaks more than words ever could. In your eyes, I find a language I can't speak, but one that resonates deeply within me. When you look at me, it's as if your gaze holds all the words I need but cannot find. The moment you look at me, words fail, and only the quiet thrum of my heart remains. Your gaze has a way of pulling me into silence, making me realize that some feelings are too big for words. Every look from you brings a wave of emotions that leave me speechless and longing for more. When I look into your eyes, I forget how to speak because your presence fills the silence with meaning. Every time you look at me, my mind goes blank, not because I have nothing to say, but because you leave me in awe. Your eyes speak a truth I can't put into words, and in that silence, I find all the answers I need. With every glance, you pull me deeper into a world where words don't matter, only feelings remain. Your gaze wraps around me like a gentle whisper, silencing my thoughts and leaving me breathless. Every time you look at me, I'm reminded that some moments are too beautiful to speak about. Your gaze leaves me speechless, as if in your eyes I find everything I've ever wanted to say. When you look at me, the world fades, and I'm left with a silence filled with feelings I can't express. Every glance you give me makes me realize that silence is sometimes the most powerful language of all. In the quiet of your gaze, I find a connection that words could never capture. When you look at me, I feel as though my heart is speaking, but my lips remain still. Your eyes hold 1,000 words that my mouth could never utter. Every time you look at me, I'm overwhelmed by the emotions you stir, leaving me silent but full of love. In your gaze, I find the answers I've been searching for, even though I can't speak them aloud. Your eyes leave me speechless, yet they speak volumes that my words can't match. When you look at me, the world becomes a blur, and all I can focus on is the emotion in your eyes. Your gaze makes me forget how to speak because I'm too lost in the depth of what you make me feel. In the quiet between us, your eyes say everything, and I don't need words to understand. Every time you look at me, I'm reminded that sometimes silence is the most powerful form of communication. Your eyes hold a depth that leaves me speechless, but my heart understands it perfectly. When your gaze meets mine, the need for words fades away, replaced by the intensity of our connection. Every time you look at me, my soul speaks louder than my voice ever could. In your gaze, I find a language that's beyond words, a connection that needs no explanation. Every glance from you makes me realize that sometimes no words are necessary, just the silence between us. When you look at me, the words escape me because your eyes have already said everything I need to hear.